Breaking news, Canon leaks new cameras and lenses. OM Systems tells us about new cameras and lenses, and Sony leaks some lenses. But our top story is that Meta is creating artificial intelligence influencers that are going to be interacting with your parents and grandparents. I'll tell you all about it, but first I want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace. Going into year 11 of our Squarespace sponsorship.
And if you want 10% off, just go to squarespace.com/Tony.
Use Squarespace to create your own space on the web, your own domain name, your own store. Take appointments from clients. Whatever you can imagine starts at squarespace.com/Tony. Try it out for free. When you love it, the coupon code Tony gets you 10% off. Thank you, Squarespace. Our top story is that Meta has been making AI influencers. They seem like actual real people. And the descriptions show pictures of them and their kids and their grandkids, but they're AI. And Meta, in fairness, did identify them as AI, but it's still incredibly creepy. And when people spoke out, Meta did remove them. So why am I even covering this now that they've already taken it down? Well, my experience, especially with American companies, is that they will try absurd, crazy, intrusive things and just see if anybody notices. And if nobody complains, they just do it. And if people do complain, they walk it back. They'll even apologize. But then 3 months later, 6 months later, they'll do it again. And now people aren't so outraged because they've already heard this story before. In your mind, it's already been resolved. So the second, the third time they do something terrible, we're all a little more accepting of it. I think Facebook, Instagram, and probably all our social media are going to bring back AI influencers to be more engaging than real human beings can possibly be. They will seem like real people, perfectly crafted to engage those people who aren't already heavily engaged in their platforms. They're going to be seeking out your parents, your grandparents, probably even your kids, making fake people that have similar interests, unusually attractive families. And just like these two that Meta took down, you'll be able to message these AI influencers directly. And in fact, they will probably reach out to you. This will allow social media companies to make more money. They'll make a more engaging platform. Albeit they'll be giving up their integrity, but these are corporations, so they never really had it anyway. Mark my words, pretty soon a substantial portion of your feed is going to be AI. All right, in camera news, the president of OM Systems, which took over Olympus Cameras when they split it off, they announced that there will be a new camera and a new weatherproof prime lens coming in 2025. I don't expect either one to be particularly groundbreaking because they haven't really done any innovation since splitting off from Olympus, but now you know. In the category of Sony rumors, coming via Sony Alpha rumors, Sony is rumored to be launching an update to their 400mm f2.8 prime telephoto lens. Now, this is a lens that's perfect for field sports, things like football and soccer where you're frequently shooting across the field. We tested it at a soccer game, and it gave us just gorgeous background blur. The focusing was incredibly fast, but this one's rumored to be even better. Just like Sony always does, they will make it a little lighter. They'll improve the bokeh. They've been doing that with every revision. They will give it faster autofocus with faster, more linear autofocus motors. But the big update is that they're going to be putting in a 1.4 times teleconverter. So with that teleconverter, you'll be able to flip it over to about a 560 f4 lens. That also means it's going to be pretty useful for wildlife photographers too, who might be getting a little bit closer. So I'm excited to see it. They're saying it's going to land about May of 2025. Sony Alpha Rumors is calling this a wild rumor, but they're saying a Sony 400 to 800 f8 GM lens is going to be coming. I don't think that's a wild thing at all. I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, we just reviewed the Canon 200 to 800 wildlife lens, and I love that range. So this is less wild than a 200 to 800. Now, a fixed f8 aperture, a lot of people seem to think that's really slow. But with modern mirrorless cameras, it's really not. It used to ruin autofocus if you weren't f5.6 or faster, but even the f11 Canon wildlife lenses that we use, autofocus great. And with modern noise reduction, you can get pretty good results. So especially for big wildlife lenses, using a smaller opening, a higher f-stop, is enabling glass to be smaller and lighter and cheaper. And those are big priorities to wildlife photographers. So I tend to believe this one because Sony does need a super zoom telephoto to match what Canon is bringing. Speaking of Canon, let's cover some recent Canon rumors. We're supposed to be seeing a Canon R3 Mark II in 2025. It's going to offer better autofocus, better sensor stabilization, and faster processing. So the original R3 is a really good sports camera. It's pretty much dedicated to sports stuff. And it's the one that they put all the cool gadgets in. So I'm excited to see it because I bet there'll be some innovation there. Mirrorless Rumors is also leaking the Canon R6 Mark III, which is supposed to be higher megapixel. That surprises me because the current R6 is 24 megapixels, but the R6 series does kind of compete with Sony's own A7 series, which I think is at 34 megapixels now. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them bump it up to 30 megapixels just to offset that one advantage that Sony currently has. It's supposed to offer better video capability, so with higher megapixels, maybe it'll be 6K instead of just 4K. And the rumor is they're finally going to give us a proper OLED screen on the camera, so it should make it much more readable in sunlight, and hopefully it'll be sharper. Those LCD screens on the back of cameras are so outdated. Finally, they're saying that the Canon R7 Mark II is going to be coming in 2025 with a stacked 32 megapixel sensor. I think this makes so much sense because as wildlife photographers, Chelsea and I have had so many panning shots ruined because of rolling shutter. But otherwise, the R7 is like the perfect wildlife camera. Fairly low price point and a 32 megapixel APS-C sensor that gives you that extra crop. It would be great, except the rolling shutter tends to ruin it for us. They're also saying that a Canon vintage camera is coming. This is a retro-styled camera that we've been asking for a long time. And when you see the success of cameras like the Fujifilm X100 series cameras or even the Nikon ZF and ZFC, it made sense that Canon would eventually do this. They also have such a history of beautiful chrome, rangefinder, and SLR-style film cameras. Mirrorless Rumors is saying this will be a retro rangefinder style camera. So not an SLR with a viewfinder in the middle, but a rangefinder with the viewfinder in the upper left corner. It's going to be minimalist and compact. It'll have analog dials for shutter speed, ISO, and exposure compensation. It's too bad they couldn't put an aperture ring on their lenses, but maybe, just maybe, they'll release a special edition RF lens for this that has an aperture ring. I wish all the manufacturers would give us aperture rings on the lenses. It'll be a full frame camera, so probably coming in $2,000 or more with a fairly low megapixel count of 20 to 24 megapixels. But for, I think, that audience, the casual retro form over function design oriented buyer, I think 20 to 24 megapixels would be perfect. Subscribe to this channel and we'll review it as soon as it is released. They're also saying we should see some new RF lenses, a 14mm f4L, a 200 to 500 f4L for people who want something faster than that 200 to 800, and a 28 to 400 f4 to f8L super zoom. I love Canon's professional super zooms. They have a long legacy of that, giving you the versatility and good image quality, but it's definitely going to be a really huge lens. One last story, an update on DJI's legal struggles in the US. For the last couple of years, lawmakers in the US have been trying to ban DJI, and people have been freaking out about it because so many professional photographers use DJI drones for their photos and video, like every realtor, and there is no good competition. Pretty much every drone sold nowadays is a DJI drone, but nothing came of it, which is exactly what we predicted. The National Defense Authorization Act did not include the Countering CCP Drones Act, and that means the DJI ban is not moving forward. Now, that doesn't mean that it won't happen at some point in the future, but I don't think it will. I think people love DJI drones in America. There's a ton of domestic support for them, but DJI also has really good lobbyists. They have good connections in the government, and I think those things combined will keep them safe for sale here in the United States. That was the news, and thank you to our sponsor, Squarespace, which makes beautiful websites incredibly easy. You just start at squarespace.com/Tony. Pick one of their beautiful templates that matches your style, but then customize it so it is yours. This can be a personal project, a business, your photography portfolio, your video reel. Whatever you can imagine comes alive at squarespace.com/Tony. Free trial, no credit card required. See that you love it. And after you do, the coupon code Tony will save you 10% off. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you.
All right, thanks guys.
Send me candy.